Gentleman from Kentucky is recognized.
I thank the chairman. Mr. Scott, isn't ESG just a way to have ideological control of capital allocation?
No, it allows you to take into consideration factors that may clearly be relevant to the future value of a corporation. If you own stock in a company that is totally fossil fuels and you see the direction that everything's going in, and that company may become worthless in the future, 10, 20, 30 years from now, you don't want all of your money in that particular stock. You may want to diversify. You may have some, but you want to diversify. And if you don't take that into consideration, if you can't take that into consideration, you'll look up and I mean you've got several companies going all electric cars. I mean, you can have all your money into.
Let me ask you a question. Do you drive an electric car?
I'm looking at that. No, I have a hybrid.
I do. I drive an electric car, but not because somebody forced me to do it. I wonder, are you using that as just as a random example, or do you think corporations will go broke if they use fossil fuels?
No, I'm saying you ought to be able to take that into consideration.
Why wouldn't they now? If their fiducial duty is to maximize.
Because if you can't take ESG into consideration, you can't take it into consideration. You can't take environmental into consideration, then you can't take those factors, and that's what all the investment people are saying. If you are on the way over a cliff, you ought to be able to notice it because it will affect the value of the investment.
That's interesting. All of the board members that I know have been accused of trying to make too much profit by the other side of the aisle. And I don't know why they would do something that was not in the interest of the shareholder. Ms. Fox, let me ask you, isn't ESG just a vehicle for ideological control of capital allocation?
I think so, and I think the department stated so in some cases, and I'll give you some quotes. The ESG rule explicitly intended to advance the Biden and Democrats' radical climate and social agenda. Rule was issued in response to not one, but two executive orders on climate change. And the Department of Labor expressly stated the intended effect of the rule is to loosen restrictions on fiduciaries to consider ESG factors in their decision-making. We know that they want to pursue additional climate change-related actions affecting retirement. That last year, DOL issued a request for information seeking input on additional actions the department can take to require retirement plans, quote, to report on how their investment policies address climate-related financial risk. And furthermore, a DOL official recently stated, while the ESG investing in role is, quote, an important step, it's not really going to be the end of our work on it.
So for people at home who haven't heard of ESG or don't think about fiducial responsibility, what is fiducial responsibility? Isn't that the obligation of the people who are managing the assets to take care and to maximize the return and for the investors? And if we loosen, like I think right now what they're worried about.
That's exactly what a fiduciary is supposed to do. You stated it correctly.
I think right now what they're worried about is when they go off on some ideological tangent and waste somebody's money or misinvest it because they have their own ideological agenda, they're subject to lawsuits. In fact, I think they're being sued by some states presently. Are they not?
Yes, but that ought not to be the role of the person whose money is being abused.
Right.
They ought not to have to sue.
Right.
First, the fiduciary should be doing what the law says it should be doing. And then, yes, there are 25 state attorneys general who are suing over this room.
So it sounds like what the administration is trying to do is to give these managers who would otherwise have a responsibility to manage with care the investments of teachers' pensions, for instance, trying to give them a long leash to go off on their ideological tangents and imprint on the world using their power of managing other people's money, using that power that's been, or I should say, abusing that power that's been trusted in them to maximize their retirement income that they've worked so hard to save.
Right.
It sounds like this administration is trying to let people who otherwise would be responsible for that be irresponsible with that money so that they can do things that sort of, that they feel good about, not things which maximize the money.
Let me give you the, what it says under ERISA. A retirement plan fiduciary must act solely in the interest of the participant and beneficiaries for the exclusive purpose of providing benefits to participants and beneficiaries.
And that's not changed.
And some of these.
Mr. Massie, if I could, that has not changed.
Let me reclaim my time here. I'll give you more time, Mr. Scott. I just wanted to finish the thought with Ms. Fox. These managers that have this money, aren't they managing pension funds, like funds for, you were a school teacher, weren't you?
I was, but not public, not in the.
Okay,
K-12.
but you must know a lot of school teachers who are going to rely on that
Sure,
income.
But ERISA is purely for private pension funds.
Okay. So it just seems to me like you got progressive activists who are trying to advance a political agenda using other people's money. And this administration is trying to loosen the responsibility, the legal responsibility that exists. But Mr. Scott, you sound like you wanted to speak to that.
Well, the fiduciary standard is not lowered. We're not changing ERISA. They have a fiduciary responsibility to maximize profits. But we ought to be able to consider, as you're maximizing profits, ESG factors. Like if you're buying a real estate investment, you ought to be able to factor in sea level rise because your investment may be underwater in 20 years. And if you can't factor that in as an ESG consideration, you may be not fulfilling your responsibility. We're just, where appropriate, where consistent with your responsibility, you ought not be denied the opportunity to consider ESG factors.
Have the real estate prices in Miami gone up or down?
I haven't been following them.
Most of it's with just in a few feet of the ocean, and it's gone up tremendously. And I would, some investors and speculators might make a mistake here and there, but I think for everybody in Miami to make a mistake about what the value of that property is going to be based on the sea level predictions, for every one of them to make that mistake in the same direction, and for the insurance companies to make the same mistake, I think is astronomical odds. And I think they already take into account those things, and I think that's why the real estate values in Miami haven't gone down. Isn't because they haven't taken care, it's because they are crunching the numbers way better than anybody up here in Congress is crunching the numbers. I'll yield back my time so we're not here all night.
Chair advises everyone that we will adjourn